The number one most important thing for every Ambazonian to do right now is to draft. Draft and draft and draft. People of Ambazonia, draft.
Why the war draft is a must now. Fellow Ambazonians, after 5 years of relentlessly fighting for the liberation of our homeland from the genocidal occupation of French Cameroon, it's very important that we remember why we are fighting and why it's so absolutely necessary that we continue to fund the struggle by joining the war draft and making even greater sacrifices than before. When the United Nations General Assembly in Resolution 1608-XV of April 21, 1961, granted independence to the Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia, they did not expect that 61 years after, this territory will be forcefully annexed and colonized by a belligerent neighbor. It must be noted here that the territory of the Southern Cameroons had already attained self-government as early as 1954, a status we enjoyed up to 1972, when the state of West Cameroon, Southern Cameroons, was illegally annexed, overrun, and occupied by French Cameroon. And because the Southern Cameroons within secure, internationally recognized boundaries, she had a functional police force under the direct command of the Prime Minister and head of government, including a mobile paramilitary wing that played the role of a territorial self-defense force. It was this vibrant territorial force that was illegally and surreptitiously disbanded by the Yaoundé regime in the mid-60s, when our nationalist leader and head of government of the Southern Cameroons, Bobe Augustin Ngom Djoua, was overthrown by the creeping annexationist regime of Amadou Ahidjo. So as we enter another patriotic war draft and fundraiser for our violent restoration forces, we must remember that just as we restored Dr. Ndele's government on October 1, 2017, we are also restoring our territorial self-defense force, now dubbed the Ambazonian Restoration Forces, ARF. Charged with not only the defense of our country and our nation, but also with driving out for once the occupation forces of genocidal Cameroon. Taking part in the war draft for our Ambazonian Restoration Forces is therefore a great patriotic duty that we must all embrace. As we speak, the country of Ukraine is under attack, with parts of her territory occupied by the Russians. We have seen how the Ukrainians have risen like one man to defend their territory, instituting a war draft that has prohibited men from the ages of 18 to 60 years of age from leaving the country. Not only are they not allowed to leave the country, but they're also compelled to take an active part in the defense of their country against the occupying forces of Russia. This is the same patriotic fervor that we expect from all Ambazonians now in fulfilling our sacred duty of defending and freeing the motherland from the genocidal grip of Cameroon's occupation forces. Thousands of our young men and women have risen since 2017, picking up arms and fighting the occupation forces to the death. We've lost thousands with many more injured, while thousands more are in the bushes fighting day and night to drive out the occupiers. It's therefore imperative that those of us, especially those in the diaspora, that are not confronting the enemy on the ground play our part and fulfill a sacred duty of drafting, raising the funds, and providing the logistics that our restoration forces need to resist the occupiers. Fellow Ambazonians, joining the draft and contributing generously is not a matter of choice for any Ambazonia, but a sacred duty to oneself, family, and the nation. They say sacrifice makes gods of men, makes us sacred, so let us do our duty now. Our President, His Excellency Dr. Samuel Ikome Sako, and the Resource Mobilization Department will be visiting each and every county soon for another round of the draft. Based on the current geopolitical atmosphere, this is a time for us to empower our restoration fighters on the ground to achieve some of our key strategic and military goals to once more prove to the world that we are ready to not only reclaim but to defend our country after liberation from any future aggression. By building a formidable, responsible, and credible self-defense force, Ambazonians will be proving to the world that we are a responsible state and ready to play a constructive role in the Gulf of Guinea. The rest of the world is watching and waiting to see how capable Ambazonians are in terms of establishing themselves as Africa's newest state. We must therefore make even greater sacrifices in our efforts to upgrade our valiant restoration forces as they lay their lives on the line to liberate Ambazonia. As a footnote, we must remember that it costs between $3,000 to $5,000 to properly equip each restoration fighter to effectively engage the enemy. So as we look up to our boys on the ground, expecting results from them, we must first ask ourselves how far we've gone to empower them. We must first ask ourselves how much financial sacrifices we have made to provide them the means to fulfill their sacred duties. Fellow Ambazonians, this is the time for us to draft until we drop. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions. Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day while our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers? Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort while our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the front? Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communications equipment to maximize their efforts? Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics? Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices in drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy? On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country? Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical intelligence and other special operations across the national territory? Fellow Ambazonians, as we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Ambazonia die as a wish, because we fail to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting of a great people. Fellow Ambazonians, the war draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No great victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depends on that.